Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is a bit of a part two. We haven't actually done a part two before. This will be with Renata Daniels. So when this beautiful lady does clock on in, I'll be able to grab her online. But before that, while we're waiting for her to jump online, I'll talk a little bit about excellent. So I'm thinking, here we go. Brilliant. So I'm just going to bring her on board. This is brilliant. Hopefully this is good connection too. But when I'm talking a little bit, waiting for Renata to jump on board. Oh, we can see her. Hello, Renata from the other side.
Hello.
Awesome. So it was a really, really great topic a couple of weeks back. We really started to get into it, but of course, the gremlins of the internet were quite of course, some great information we spoke about. Of course, first one was about whether or not, obviously, a negative entity can actually join and attach itself to a positive one. Hi, Anne. Hi, Kat. Good to see you guys. Of course, Renata also brought up the idea on the possibility of curses as well. So whether or not someone from the living can actually curse something and an entity that has possibly passed on. We also looked at the possibility of elementals as well. So whether or not there's something that has never been human, can that actually affect something or an entity on the other side that has been human? How much does one realm play with the other? Also, Renata made a very, very, very good point about the fact that there needs to be an observer to all this as well in order for us to know what's happening. So unless someone's observing this happening from some sort of platform where it's mediumship or psychic in some way, we don't know what's going on. So it's the same with science as well, general science. Unless you're observing something, we don't know if it exists or not. I know it sounds really simple, but trust me, it's a very important thing to have. And also whether or not relatives can actually come through and not really be themselves, I guess you could say. Like they come across and they seem to not quite be themselves. Are they being negatively affected by another entity, as humans can be on this side as well? So there's a couple of things. I think we ended up on the possibility of whether or not there is such a possibility of having a consciousness on another side. Do you have free will, as we do here? To be able to have be surrounded by certain entities, or as here we have certain friends or certain people. So it was a very, very interesting topic and a very interesting start as well. Hi Rob. Hi Jules, good to see you. Lovely. G'day from north of Australia. I'm jealous of your warmth, hence the reason the scarf and this, trying to keep warm. I've got my heater on in the background. How are you coping, Renata?
Oh, not too bad. It was very cold this morning, but then it just warmed up and it was a beautiful day actually here.
Good, very good. So this topic, negative entities influencing positive ones. So we kind of ended on the possibility of whether or not, we have that kind of free will where we allow something, like I mentioned, I think also in that particular video, that sometimes here we talk about using a Ouija board opens you up to all sorts of entities. Can that actually happen if we're actually in the spirit realm? Would you think, in your experience, is that something as a possibility at all?
To tell you the truth, I've never had much luck with Ouija boards. It's kind of always come out as fairly gobbledygook and not too much clarity in the answers overall. I know of people overseas who have appeared on other podcasts that use Ouija boards and have written whole books that have been dictated by the Ouija board or by their spirit guides. So we've got a spirit guide who is using a Ouija board. So yes, it isn't just something that apparently demons come through, but also spirit guides and angels come through Ouija boards as well. So we go back to this thing of, what do we believe in? And does that belief have influence over what we attract? So there you go.
Do you think that happens when someone's passed over? Do you think that belief carries with them, or does it just get shredded and they're sort of the realm, sort of almost at the whim of not whim necessarily, but they're more susceptible to other energies that could possibly, like we said, it's not about possession, it's more about influence on the other side?
I don't know. I don't know whether there is a hierarchy over there or not. People speak of a hierarchy when they're talking from the mediumship perspective, and they might say, you know, we need our spirit team to open up the portals and allow the others through, or that sometimes there might be a particular energetic force that allows others through and not others. Whether that is some sort of a hierarchy that's built into the system there, I don't know. It seems to be that the more questions you ask, the more questions you need to ask, and the more confusing it can all get. And if you ask 10 people their advice about it, you will get 10 different responses.
Do you think it really is about someone's personal interpretation of the information that comes through? Because I think I mentioned that in the last video, where that's what I've been told by a lot of different mediums over the years, where, you know, you can walk into a location and somebody may pick up one thing about a particular entity, and then someone picks up something else about that entity, but they both can be real and true, and a verification of their abilities. But do you think that, you know, sometimes it really is about how they present themselves to you, and you know, with that being the case, well, you know, it's interesting if they present themselves to you, if they've somewhat been taken over by another entity, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. And then, okay, is that entity that has taken over that particular person an entity that is attached to you and either trying to protect you or trying to make your life an absolute misery? So again, from the mediumship point of view, do mediums here make sure that they are clear and protected, or whether they allow their energies to be more free floating and therefore attract the negative energies here that then change things over there? So again, you know, we have this confusing thing of where does this actually happen? Does it happen earthbound, or does it happen in this energetic sphere that we believe sits somewhere here, and you know, has influence on us? Or is it another dimension that we're actually talking about? And all of this is happening on another dimensional level, because science actually does think now, or some people do posit, that we have different dimensions that sort of interact with ours. And so, you know, it's really, really hard to get to the bottom of that, because once again, it is every person's different interpretation from what they've learned, what their understanding is, and so on and so forth. So this, you know, it's like, how long is a piece of string? We
Yeah,
just don't
yeah,
know.
exactly. I mean, Sharon Williams brings a really interesting point. She said, could the negative entity relate to a particular area, like indigenous cultures, sacred areas,
Mm.
rather than coming from negative energy from the people using the board, or spirits coming through the wrong place, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I reckon so. I really do. When I go out to investigate, or if I'm on, well, anywhere in Australia, we have that Indigenous ancestry and history within the land. I
Mm,
always make sure that I do something positive. I ask for the spirits that are there to allow me to be present, even though I am not of that blood, and, you know, just to allow me to do my work there. I find that is helpful for
mm,
me. I find that I feel that I have done my little bit. I am in the process of trying to talk to someone that can give me some more information on that, because the whole Indigenous side of things really intrigues me. And I think that we're missing that bit here. As paranormal investigators in Australia, I think it's really, really important for us to delve deeper into that and understand those roots before we go into the, you know, the white Australian roots that we have.
of course, absolutely. And it's such an older, you know, we're obviously talking about the possibility of ghosts and spirits having been proven or existed in some way. Of course, we're talking hypothetically in that way.
Yes.
Still, with that being the case, it's you know, indigenous energy, you know, obviously here in Australia, but also I also know in the States with the beautiful American Indian energy, it's so much older, it's been there for so much longer. It's you know, if we're talking about energy leaving its footprint and being in the ground, you know, and that, does that affect people in a negative way? Can it affect people in a negative way? And we mentioned again, you know, curses and things like that. We know the
Yeah.
Sharon Tate house that David Oldman has in sort of California, where he believes that from his interpretation that there is a mound of an Indian and his horse that's actually buried underneath and right next to sort of the house. There's sort of like bare earth exposed, and he believes that there is somebody buried there with their horse, and believes that could also be negatively affecting the land as well. So in Sharon's comment, it's interesting that the fact that we talk about negative entities possibly affecting positive ones from an elemental or cursed like state, but maybe it's from an indigenous, maybe it's something that's much older that was human, but it's such an old culture. Could
Exactly.
possibly
Exactly. And so some of these beliefs go far back, way back to those first societies where they built those beliefs into their cultural system. And a lot of those beliefs, were very ingrained for those people. So we tend to float around between all this information that we have now. I mean, thousands of years ago, they didn't have all that information that is available to us now, but their belief system was, totally 100% of them. And so once again, if you believe that you can create energy, these forces came into being very, very early on. And with old societies, they still remain very, very strong. Around Newcastle, I really, really believe Newcastle, Maitland and the Hunter has a huge Indigenous protection around it. And if something occurs on the land that doesn't suit or shouldn't be happening, I think there is quite a negative impact on that particular area. I can feel it as I'm walking around. I feel it with the changes that are in the city now. And I feel there is a lot of restlessness that's going on, not only with the live people, but with those that are protecting that land and have been protecting it for thousands of years.
It's interesting with that being the case, talking about the whole protection side of it. Say for instance, obviously an entity has passed on, a positive entity, and a negative entity influences that particular spirit. We talk about having ancestors or family that protect your entity, your spirit when you're over there. Like, do you believe that some people just have the mafia, and some people just have to go it alone, and they're more susceptible? What are your thoughts on that sort of stuff? I know it's a very eclectic.
Yeah, that's a really cool subject. I remember going to a talk many years ago about possessions and exorcisms, and the teacher there was talking about the fact that it is often better to call in the spirits on the other side that act as protectors to do battle, let's say, with those energies, because they're much closer and they're on the same vibrational level. So we can do our bit here, but we must always think that there are those there that are acting on the best will of everyone, and to keep everything or keep the status quo, as it were. And so they should be the ones that are interceding, that are taking part in removal of anything that could harm us. I kind of think that sounds pretty good, actually. That sounds, if we go back once again, many centuries ago, humans would always petition their gods to act on their behalf, or they would go to cemeteries and they would ask their loved ones to petition on their behalf to the gods, rather than doing it, straight away. So if, instead of me praying to my God, I would ask my ancestor, who has passed over, to do that for me. So there was this medium in between. I think we can do a little bit here, but we often, I think, may believe we have much more power than we have.
Okay, so maybe it's more, we can do more here than what we are doing from that spiritual perspective, you're saying, from that sort of angle.
We can maybe do less than we think we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it always pays, I think, to be humble in that respect and to think, well, okay, I'm not as great a magician or a person that I think I am, and therefore maybe I should build a protective circle around me with regard to those beliefs that I have, whether they be in spirit guides or ancestors and whatever, and ask those to help when it comes to moving or shifting things or just grabbing your own protection around you, rather than sort of standing there and going, well, I can do all of this, all I need to do is say the words and it's all done, you know?
Yep, yep. It's funny how like I mentioned before, the whole Ouija board thing, the fact that that there's this invitation to bring something negative towards you, or open up a door. There's this idea, a very popular idea, that, as you and I both know, we'd probably use Ouija boards more than times. We've got hands and toes, and we seem to be okay. But on the other side, say for instance, do you think a particular entity has to be a certain level of inviting of something negative, like we do here? Like we have this belief where you've got to sort of almost be a little bit weak, or a little bit of I don't care, or of nonchalant. Do you think it's a little bit like that on the other side, where then suddenly now a negative entity can somehow attach itself to a positive one?
I think it would be more to do with the passing of the person and in what circumstances they passed, what mental state they were in, and how that energy shatters over at the other side. Does it stay, as you said, in a hole? And is it the whole character that seems to be contained, or is it a little bit like a sponge where, depending on how much seeps in, depends on how much that character changes? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some people will say that once you die, you literally get wings and you're an angel and everything's wonderful and your soul is nice and bright and beautiful and all is forgiven and you're wealthy and healthy and all of that sort of stuff. So again, is it possible for those people to believe that someone who has now become angelic in form can be possessed by something that is demonic?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it a state where if we leave this earth as a fragile human being, does that energy remain fragile? For how long does it remain fragile? Is there a time period where there is a healing that goes on? So therefore, are we more fragile as close to our death, or at during our passing, the first year or 2 years or 3 years after death, or where does this healing happen? Does it happen instantaneously? Is there a length of time? And does that mean that those effects of, say, curses or bad wishes of those that remain here on earth, or energies that we send over there and say, attack that bastard, I hated my ex, he's dead and I still want him to burn in hell for the rest of eternity, type of thing? When does that latch itself on, and when does that attack start?
Yeah, exactly. So true, so true. Yeah, it's an incredible subject. As like you said, it's like how long's a piece of string. It's really trying to figure out what happens on the other side, and then obviously people's interpretation of that energy coming through. That's the biggest sort of question, I guess. It's the communicator on this side that's able to observe and see, and not just from a perspective of what really does go on. It really, energies will present themselves in the way they wish to be seen, to the right,
Yep.
to certain people, and it could be completely different from one person to another as well. So
And I'm going to throw another spanner in the works, Beth.
cool, I love that.
What
You go ahead.
happens? Yeah, what happens if there's reincarnation?
So what happens to the energy
Okay.
you've passed on? Something's going
Yeah.
on here.
What happens to that?
Mm,
Because we have these stories of reincarnation where, it seems to happen in our lifetime. So someone has passed away, say, World War II. And of course, we've heard stories about these children that are being born now that take on that persona and personality, and they know, where that person died, and they can lead people to that spot of death, and they know exactly, what aeroplane they were flying, what they were wearing, and so on and so forth. So, you know, what happens then, and why are we all reincarnated? Can an energy be influenced before they are reincarnated? So, our lifetime here, we were wonderful and you know, charitable and all that, but we get attacked over the other side and we come back and all of a sudden we're axe murderers.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I've had a thought in years that we are, if this exists, that we could be everywhere. So I'm actually reincarnating somewhere else. I'm here. I'm on the other side. It's a thought that I've had, because it just seems like, you know, like you said, the dynamics of the fact that, you know, there's so many different parts of you everywhere. You know, that's one idea that I've actually kind of explored a little bit, and the possibility of the fact that, you know, you can reincarnate, still be here, and still be an axe murderer at the same time. So,
Oh, that's just, yeah, that's just mind blowing. That's one of those, yeah, I know. That's one of those things where you kind of look at the universe, you know, how they show you those pictures and you go, well, this is Earth right here, a little dynamic spot, and the whole universe is like this huge, and you go, that's not possible. My head can't grasp that.
mm-hmm.
So it's the same sort of thing. I think our brains may get to all of this at one stage. Are we ready for it yet? You know, have we gotten to that point, or are we just sort of skirting around the edges? Because certainly humans aren't being the best that they can be at this point in time. They are making a mighty mess of the world. So, you know, are we ready to really examine all of this and say we know what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly a best way to be. And I think the internet demons have been cast out, exorcised from my connection and yours as well, because we're still alive.
I'm still here. See, I'm not
Still
touching.
here.
My hands are here.
If anyone's got any questions at all before we sign off, hello, Charmaine. Charmaine says hello. George says hi, Beth and Renata. Good chat. Thanks very much for joining us, George. And everyone else as
Thank you,
well.
George.
If anyone has any sort of questions or ideas, I know that Jackie's also watching as well. Jacqueline, good to see you, lovely. But yeah, it is an interesting subject. Like you said, as long as a piece of string is how long you could really sort of theorize on the different ideas, and how negative entities can actually affect positive ones here on Earth, literally, like as people, as opposed to being over there as well. So.
I'll just say something to you, Beth, before we close off. We do a lot of mediumship stuff now at a lot of our tours, and we find that a lot of people, and I'd like $1, and I'm sure you would too, for people who say, oh, will I walk away being possessed by something, or I'll take something home with me? And I keep on saying to them, you'll take home with you what you brought with you, because the fact is that in most cases, especially when we're doing mediumship stuff at some of these sites, it's not these site ghosts that we're interacting with. We're interacting with the spirits that all of these people have brought with them, and they're often dying to ask questions or to get messages through. So when we're doing some of our, you know, mediumship work, it's those energies that we're connecting. So very rarely are we hitting out onto the spirits that are on a site. We can do that purposefully, but when it's one-on-one and we're very close to the people that are on, or we're doing some sort of table work, for example, with our table tipping and glass dowsing, it is the spirits of the people that have come in that are elbowing everyone to the side and going, I have to talk to this person. I've got something I need to say. I've been waiting 10 years. Get out of my way. I don't care who you are. I need to give this person this particular message. So people will take home with them what they bought.
Perfect, because I'd be happy with that. Karen says, have been in a few places where a friend's case has leashed onto a public investigation. So yeah, other people have clearly had it where, you know, you walk in and it's like, oh, you know, the entities, do they want to communicate? And then, it's, like you said, everyone like in the spirit realm, everyone's kind of elbowing me first.
Yeah. We've certainly had that happen.
Well, thank you so much, Renata, for joining me tonight for the second part of I Want to Know with negative entities. Can they attach to positive ones? As we said, we've established it's a topic that can spurn off to many different areas and different ideas and thoughts. And thank you to everybody who has been watching tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you so much. And I will see you on the weekend, Miss Renata.
Oh, yes. It's going to be so good.
Do take
Thank
care,
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.